On March 19, 2024, Kylie has sent a text to a friend, basically saying that she has messed up and her life is basically over. This is a case that I have been following for a while, and the reason why I have been following this case is because it got my attention, especially the way people are trying to cover up for a child, that it's okay for a child to kill her mother because she's suffering mentally and she needs actual help. And just because she's only 14 years old, does that mean she should get away with it? So on March 19th, 2024, Kylie actually sent a text to a friend saying that she has messed up. And one of her friends, let's call him James, he said, "What do you mean?" And the other friend, let's call her Sophie, she said, "Should I call 911?" And to which Kylie replied, "No, you can't do that. You can't call anyone." What James does, he gets on his bike, and what Sophie does, Sophie tells her dad that, "Dad, can you drop me off to Kylie's house?" So within 2 minutes, Sophie comes to Kylie's house, and James, he's still riding his bike. When Sophie arrived to Kylie's house, Kylie was standing at the door. And surprisingly, she was actually quite calm. Her friend asked, "What's going on? Are you okay?" To which Kylie looked at her and said, "Are you squeamish?" And she said, "No, I'm not squeamish." And she said, "Well, if you're squeamish, I can't show you what I did." And her friend had to reassure her, saying that, "Hey, look, I'm not squeamish. Show me, what is it? What is it that you're hiding?" So then Kylie replies, "Have you ever seen a dead body?" Her friend shook her head no, stating she's never seen a dead body. Kylie then led Sophie into her bedroom. When they entered, her friend looked down and saw a lifeless body. Hey everyone, welcome to Crack Case. My name is Sharika. Okay, so before I actually get into this video, I actually wanted to mention one thing that really did catch my eye. And that is, why on earth did Kylie call Sophie? Normally, let's say hypothetically someone murders, and say if I call a friend, obviously I would be calling a friend to hide the body. Why did she call her friend just to witness or see a dead body? I feel like this whole thing is a pre-planned murder by her stepdad and by the daughter Kylie. And I think this case really does need to reopen, because it doesn't make sense as to why Kylie called Sophie in the first place. Because what is the point of having Sophie over? Like, just to watch a murder? It doesn't make sense. Like, there's just something that doesn't just add up. Moving on to the case, there's a moment in trials that often goes viral. When defendants learn that they've been found guilty, this can be due to raw, unfiltered human expression that is captured in that instant. It's a poignant and intense realization for the individual as they come to terms that their life will change dramatically. Sometimes the intensity of guilty verdicts is heightened. If you are found guilty, the judge will announce the final verdict of the guilt, and then each juror is asked to confirm their decision. The process is usually requested by one of the sides in advance, and it can be emotionally draining due to its repetitive nature. There's nothing the defendant can do but watch as their fate is being confirmed. They cannot plead with the jurors to change their mind, talk to the judge, or even embrace their family. They just have to sit there and listen to what the judge is saying. For 15 years old Kylie, she had to listen to 36 confirmations. Is this your verdict? Yes, guilty as count 1.
Verdict? Sir, is that your verdict? Yes. Ma'am, is that your verdict? On the back row, sir, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict? Ma'am, is that your verdict?
She couldn't believe that this was happening to her. Kylie was in disbelief, so she kept looking back at her family because she thought that maybe her family will be able to help her. But what can they do? But just 6 months earlier, 14 years old Kylie Gregg was the student of the year at her high school. She was so smart that she literally skipped a grade. Like, that's how much of a genius she was. And she was one of the top students in her school. Even though, like, she was popular, like, you know, but when you're a nerd, you don't have that many friends because you're a nerd. But even though she was a nerd, she was a brilliant student. She was quite popular with her friends, which is very uncommon. You don't see that. You can't have it all. But she was the girl that had it all. She was smart. She was intelligent. She also had a bunch of friends. And because of that, she was quite popular. But what could happen between March to September that led her being sentenced to life in prison at the age of just 15 years old? Kylie Gregg was not a typical troublemaker. She was a smart kid. Kylie Gregg's mom could really see Kylie's potential. You know, like when you're a mom or a dad and you you could just see how much potential your child's got. And speaking about her mom, her mother's name is Mrs. Smylie, and like Kylie, her mother was also really good at making friends, you could say. Her mom was a really good teacher. She was a maths teacher. And you know, like when you have maths teacher, you don't really like them. But for Mrs. Smylie, it was the opposite, because she was really good with kids and she was also really good at maths. So even though maths is hard, till this day, I don't like my maths teacher. But with Kylie's mother, she was a well-liked math teacher at her high school. However, about Kylie's friends, the kids' name weren't mentioned, so I'm going to name them James and Sophie. About James and Sophie, they were Kylie's really good friends and they cared about Kylie a lot. But as time went by, James and Sophie, they started getting a bit concerned about Kylie's lifestyle, because Kylie started behaving in a very weird way. Like her friends were getting more concerned about her, especially in March 2024, because Kylie started taking more risks. And when I say concerned, the reason why her friends started getting concerned, because people would randomly dare Kylie to do something. One of Kylie's friends actually dared Kylie to drink hand sanitizer, and she did. And so her friends started getting more worried about Kylie. They thought that if this kept going on, then Kylie will start taking more bigger risks. Kylie, who scored 30 on ACT as a sophomore, placing her on the top 93 as a test taker. And now Kylie was seen smuggling knife, getting caught stealing exam papers from her teacher's desk and passing them around. So this sort of behavior, you know, like it's not normal for a kid who is a genius, who is doing so well in her life. Suddenly she turns out to be some sort of a goon. So James and Sophie, Kylie's friend, they end up getting a bit worried, because they're like, what is happening with Kylie? Why is she being this way? So they both decide to distract Kylie and inform Kylie's mother what Kylie has been up to. They thought that it was a hard decision to do because they didn't want Kylie to get grounded, but it was important because in the long run, Kylie will thank James and Sophie. So the plan was quite straightforward. Sophie's duty was to distract Kylie by taking her out for a walk. So James, being the good kid he is, he goes to Mrs. Smylie and he tells her what the daughter has been up to. He even advises Mrs. Smylie, do not confront Kylie today. She's hiding weed and vape pens in her bedroom. I just don't want her to know that it was me and Sophie who told you about this. So James believed that as long as Mrs. Smylie follows his advice, everything will be fine. And according to plan, everything does seem to go well. Anyways, class is dismissed, and what James does, he decides to go to Kylie's house to see if everything is okay. While James reaches to Kylie's house, he sees there's a bunch of police cars outside of Kylie's house. What happened? Anyways, let's rewind to earlier that day. What exactly happened? From the moment the high school bell rang, the police ends up finding Kylie near a storm drain. You know those little gaps near the sidewalk? The ones with a hole, the ones you've seen in the movie It, where, you know, the little yellow kid gets dragged, yeah. But Kylie, she ends up crawling out of it. And by the time she comes out of a storm drain, she's all drenched, and surprisingly, she's quite calm as well. As soon as she comes out, the police asks her, you used a pistol, right? And she says, yes, sir. And she was very calm. And I think the reason why she was calm is because I think she was in shock. She couldn't believe that she just shot someone. But even though she was calm, she wasn't nervous. Which hand did you use to shoot? And she replies, well, I don't remember. My stepdad, okay? And one of the officers responds that, I don't know, baby, I can't discuss that with you. The police then moves aside and then, you know, they talk amongst themselves. One of the officers turns to the other one and says that she doesn't even know about her mom and she's asking if my stepdad's okay. When the police were called to their home, they found Kylie's mom, who was dead, and they also found her stepdad, who has been shot. So what the police does, they end up going back to the house, and what they find is a small camera that is placed inside a refrigerator. Now they're wondering what on earth is a camera doing in the refrigerator even in the first place, because normally the cameras are not placed inside the refrigerator, but this one was placed, you know, behind the water bottles. Who even hides a camera in, you know, in the fridge? So what the police does, they take the camera, they import the footage, and then they start reviewing it. So based on the video footage, it was quite evident that Kylie Kylie and Ashley were having an intense argument because of what Sophie and James told Mrs. Smylie. Kylie had a burner phone and weed vape pens in her room, which was hidden. Based on the video, it was quite evident that Mrs. Smylie was in Kylie's room, searching for the vape pens, of a burner phone, weed and all that. It was quite evident. And in the video, Mrs. Smylie, she was not visible. What Kylie does, she let her 2 golden retriever dog to come inside through the back door. On that video footage, you couldn't see Kylie entering the kitchen. She herself also came inside through the back door. It's like as if she's almost leaking in. She moves through the kitchen casually, listening to music while quietly heading towards the living room. She stands at the living room entrance, peeks her head to the right and then to the left and listens briefly. Then she quietly heads left. Kylie comes in. It's like she's hiding something behind. What is she hiding? Like, is there someone in the house? Someone that's not supposed to be. But even if there was someone, how come the dogs are so free? How come the dogs are not, tensed or worried like they usually are when they see a stranger? The dogs were wagging their tails, completely unaware that there was a third party in the house. Kylie moves to the left side of the hallway, past the kitchen, to the right side of the house, and behind she's hiding something, and it looks like a gun. If you actually see the footage carefully, you could see that the gun's not visible, but you know that she's hiding a gun because shortly after there's a loud gunshot. Dogs were scared. They didn't know what was going on, so you could see them going back and forth. They were pacing like, what is that sound? Then 2 more shots are fired, and then bam, silence. For a moment, everything in that kitchen is still, and the dogs, they're worried, they're confused, they don't understand what just happened. And then Kylie returns to the kitchen. She's calm, as if no gunshots have been fired. She's acting as if everything's okay. Maybe to her. And then later she sits on one of the stools facing the camera. She then picks up her phone and starts texting people. She's aware that the camera is recording her. She starts using her phone, and then in the background, while Kylie is texting her friend, you could hear someone moaning from the back because the person has been shot 3 times and she's still alive. There's some life to her. Based off the video footage, she grabs the gun again and then she goes towards the right side of her house again. And the dogs are watching. They don't know what to do. Like, they're worried. They're pacing back and forth. And before that, the dogs were wagging their tail. Now you can see on the video footage that their tails are down. They're very scared and very anxious. And by the time Kylie returns to the kitchen, her mom's dead. Anyways, Kylie goes back to the kitchen and she reassures her dog everything is okay. She even tells them, hey, it's okay, don't worry, it's okay. But now Kylie's texting one of her friends saying that, are you squeamish? And her friend's like, what do you mean? And she's like, have you ever seen a dead body? Kylie's mother has been shot in the face 3 times. And then when her friend arrives, she tells her friend that, can you wait outside in the backyard? I'm waiting for my stepdad to return so I can shoot him 3 times as well. Can you stay outside of the backyard? So what Kylie does, she goes for her mom's bag and she ends up taking her phone out. And when she takes her phone out, she ends up texting her stepdad, are you almost home, honey? Her stepdad ends up coming home within 10 to 15 minutes. And she tried to shoot him, but the bullet grazes his shoulder and he managed to wrestle the gun from her. And when the stepdad is finally holding the gun, she ends up fleeing the house and she ends up hiding in the storm drain. Sophie seems traumatized. She didn't expect to see a dead body. Sophie ends up telling the police that Kylie told me to wait in the backyard because she's waiting to shoot someone. I didn't run away because I was scared that if I ran away, then she would have shot me as well. So because she didn't want to be shot, Sophie was waiting in the backyard for Kylie to shoot her stepdad. Anyways, the police actually ended up going through Kylie's house and they found a journal. And on the journal, it said, March 12, a week before the incident, she writes, I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal was quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head. Well, I didn't hear them until earlier today, but I only did then. My friend and I were practically streaming bloodthirstiest. I mean, thank God physical confrontation was not fruitfully possible. I sound crazy. I need to get back into the habit of journaling. I think it's good. I haven't quite decided if I will be bringing this stupid thing to my therapist tomorrow. I just can't decide. Then stuffed into that journal is a folded piece of paper. There's a writing in the middle that reads, anywho, I don't think I'll make it any longer. Then scribbled all over the paper is please help me, please help me, please help me in different fonts and handwriting. I don't know. I don't. I'm sorry. Please help me. When Kylie was asked about this piece of paper, she claims that she has no idea what anyone is talking about, and it seems like Kylie doesn't even remember that she actually wrote that down. In another page in Kylie's journal states, "What do I believe? There is no God. Heaven and hell doesn't exist. You don't need family. Write your own destiny. Love yourself. Don't belong to anyone. Never be alone. Visit your safe space often. Sometimes you have to blend in, but always remember it's okay to be evil. Sometimes you must dive into darkness to see the light. Death is inevitable." Another entry reads, "Water, fire, earth. I choose fire. It's powerful, beautiful, and deadly. Those are the traits I want to be, so I chose fire." Anyways, the judge offered Kylie a plea deal. Plead guilty to shooting your mom 3 times in the face and attempting to kill your stepfather. Plead guilty and you will get 40 years in prison, which means that she will be released when she's 54 years old. The alternative, go to trial. Judge cautioned her, think carefully. You could take the 40 years and be out at 54, or the jury could acquit you and you would walk free. Or they could convict you. You could face 2 life sentences for murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. Kylie stood there right in front of a judge and she turned the plea down. The judge said, "Miss Gregg, did you receive a recommendation for 40 years?" And she said, "Yes, sir. And it was your choice alone to reject it." And she says again, "Yes, Your Honor." So Kylie had to convince the jury that she wasn't mentally stable despite the kitchen footage and the distress dogs. And the way Heath was, giving the testimony, it was very controversial because everyone was talking about this. I remember watching one of the videos where people were like, "I'm certain that this man is grooming her." I even saw the video footage and I was thinking as well, like, why would you wink at your stepdaughter? Like, what the hell? Why would you do that? So he took the stand. His testimony was quite controversial, and as he appeared, he seemed he didn't have like any emotion. Anyways, the trial was quite quick. Murder cases takes at least 2 to 3 years, but about Kylie, hers was really quick. At least few months, you could say. March to September, and then that's that. Some people were even actually saying that Heath might have been medicated or he is hiding his emotions. There could be many reasons why he was acting this way, why he was so nice and friendly towards his stepdaughter. On the stand, Heath said that he met Ashley in 2019 and then got married in 2020. And while he was on the stand, he was also describing his wife as someone that was kind and lovely and very intelligent. And about Ashley's husband, they were still in the honeymoon phase. So Ashley and Heath, they would spend most of the time with Kylie and take Kylie to karate and guitar lessons. A bullet grazed his shoulder, and while it did, he hit his trapezius muscle. The court even played Heath's 911 call, where he didn't even sound like himself. He didn't sound like himself at all. The operator even mistakenly called him ma'am at one point. And because of the amount of shock that he was in, he couldn't even give his address. He just screamed on the phone that his stepdaughter has shot him, and he managed to take the gun from her. That's all he could provide. But then he also said that the stepdaughter has run out the back door. When the 911 call was being played, Kylie was the only one in that trial who was very emotional. In the call, he sounded like an animal. He realized that his wife, Ashley, was dead. He screamed and said, "She killed her. She killed her mom. She's dead on the floor in my daughter's room, my stepdaughter's room." When the officer arrived, Heath could barely stand on his own. He collapsed outside, leaning against a wall, and he was struggling to speak. The officer asked Heath, "Where is your wife?" And then Heath replied, "My wife is on the floor in that room." The officer rushed inside and found Ashley lying on the porch. And then the officer asked Heath, "Does she still have a gun?" And Heath replied, "It's on the kitchen countertop. She tried to shoot me." 6 months goes by, and now Heath is on the stand. And many questions focused on Kylie's mental health before the incident. Heath explained that Kylie's biological father was a very troubled man, and he was never a good man to even start off with. He even included how he terrorized Ashley and Kylie. Kylie also shared that when she would visit her biological dad, he would often smoke around Kylie and would also use drugs when she was around. And when she was 12 years old, he also forced her to drink beer. Heath also mentioned that Ashley was a really good mother and Ashley would do anything for Kylie. Kylie. And that was because previously Ashley had lost a baby due to genetic condition. And because of that, she was always protective and anxious about Kylie. And the reason why she was so overprotective over Kylie was because her dad had a drug addiction. Ashley was really worried that what if her daughter Kylie ends up like her dad. Ashley was particularly vigilant about keeping drugs away from 14 years old Kylie, and that kind of concern was absolutely justified because obviously it's genetic. If you're doing drugs today, your kid is bound to follow that step because that's just how it works. Ashley was so scared of Kylie's dad, biological dad, that she even kept a loaded gun under her mattress. And unfortunately, that was the very same weapon that Kylie used to shoot her own mother. Kylie's stepfather expressed how shocked he was because he didn't expect this to happen. He'd said that it was one of those typical mornings where both the husband and wife got ready and then they got their kid ready for school. It was one of those days. He never thought in a million years that this day would be the day where his wife ends up getting shot. After being released from the hospital, Heath comes home, he starts cleaning up his house, and while he did that, he ends up finding an SD card, and he attempted to transfer the files to his computer. He contacted the police. The police said that they were going to come and get the SD card. While Heath was going through his fridge, Heath found the hidden camera inside the fridge, and then he alerted the police that he's found another camera. Heath was really cooperative, showing them where this was, where that was. He said that he feels like the police are treating him very oddly. They even accused him for tampering with the evidence because before he contacted them, he attempted to copy the files from the SD card. But before he copied, he accidentally moved one of the footages from the SD card to his laptop instead of copying them. So since the police officers accused him of tampering with the evidence, he was frustrated because he was not going to take it anymore. So what Heath did, he ends up hiring a lawyer and stops working directly with the law enforcement. Despite everything, Heath made it very clear that he loves Kylie no matter what happens. He loved Kylie like she was his own. When the media asked him, but your daughter literally tried to shoot you, Heath believes the only reason Kylie even shot him is because Kylie thought that Heath was an intruder, and at that moment Kylie didn't even recognize that it was her stepdad. During the trial, the prosecutors asked Heath to point to the person that shot him, and then Heath looked at Kylie, he pointed at her, both of them shared a smile. Clip of Heath smiling at Kylie has gone viral, and some even claimed that he literally mouthed "I love you," and some parent even came forward and said that yes, I do love my stepkids, but it wouldn't be to a point where I could see my stepkid hurting their parent. And some even argued that even if Kylie was his biological child, it still would have been impossible to forgive Kylie for such an act. He came into relationship with Ashley in the year 2019, and in 5 years you can't build such a strong relationship. And Kylie at that time was around 10 to 11 years old. There was a protective order barring Kylie and Heath from communicating, and that was put in place for Heath's safety. However, when Heath found out, he asked for that order to be removed. And since then, ever since she has been in jail, she has been talking to him every single day. They have been communicating every single day. Then the issue with the SD card rises up. Some people have speculated that he copied the footage to make sure there was nothing on it that could implicate him. It's also worth noting that the court, the police, none of them has ever suspected Heath for even being involved in, Ashley's murder. But online, people actually came together and they have mentioned the elephant in the room, and they're like, this is not an act that is only done by a child. Someone else is involved as well. Someone else has manipulated Kylie. And the reason why people even actually thought that Heath was a part of it because of the way he was speaking about Kylie. Some people says that they've never seen a relationship like that. A stepfather and a stepdaughter being so close. They've never seen anything like that. And the fact that he's so forgiving and calm, it does raise an eyebrow. Heath is literally, he's on the court and he's literally telling people how Kylie is a sweet, innocent child. This is not her usual self. Like, this doesn't even happen. He is describing Kylie as someone that is sweet, dependable, and bubbly. So people are not buying this. And some even pointed out that Heath only smiles when he is talking about his stepdaughter, but he doesn't even smile or even seems sad when he's talking about Ashley. Like, there's no emotion in it. During the trial, there was a moment when the defense attorney asked Kylie's stepfather, Heath, whether he would describe her as callous or calculative, to which Heath replied, "No, nothing like that. No, not except with math." And while he said that, that comment brought a smile on both Kylie and Heath's face. And people were actually talking about it, like, why are you guys smiling at each other? And in that courtroom, Heath was not the only one that was present. And when Ashley's mother entered the courtroom, Kylie smiled at her grandmother, and she was very reserved. Like, she didn't smile, she said nothing. She just looked at her, and like that awkward smile, like, That's the sort of smile that she gave. Like, she wasn't talking much with Kylie. She was very reserved. Now, people are speculating that the reason why Heath is defending Kylie, his stepdaughter, this is not an inappropriate relationship, but rather a legal strategy to protect himself. The gun that Kylie used to shoot her mother, apparently that gun actually belonged to Heath. And now what people are talking about is that if it belonged to Heath, why didn't he take extra measures to hide that gun? Like, why was he okay about the gun being under the mattress when Heath clearly knows that their stepdaughter suffers mentally? People who were at the courtroom, they were observing that Kylie was often seen smirking or giggling. For example, when the prosecution expert claimed that Kylie wasn't mentally ill, and he said that while he was pointing towards one of her journals, and the giggling doesn't just stop there. Like, you can see her laughing with the attorneys, scribbling something on the paper. At one point, you could even see her laughing uncontrollably, and people around her found it very weird. Like, why was she laughing like that? Now, the defense has argued that Kylie is essentially the poster child for someone who might experience such a break, pointing to her family's mental illness. They've claimed that her biological father is both bipolar and schizophrenic, suggesting that this makes Kylie more genetically predisposed to similar conditions. There is also no official record of him ever being diagnosed with schizophrenia. The defense also tried to use Kylie's history of therapy as evidence for her mental health struggles. But here's the catch. There was never any mention of her hearing voices during these sessions. It was until after the incident. And ever since she has been in prison, she has been claiming that she is hearing voices in her head. But before that, before the whole incident, she has never mentioned, not even once, that she can hear voices. The defense also pointed at the medication history, suggesting it played a role to her mental state. Because apparently Kylie was the first person that was prescribed Zoloft, which she said that it made her feel like a zombie, and was later switched to Lexapro. Her lawyers argue that this medication change might have triggered a psychotic break, but the state pushed back, pointing out that while Lexapro can sometimes be linked to suicidal ideation, it's not known to cause homicidal tendencies. So now all this has happened, people were actually questioning, where is Kylie's dad? Why is he not showing up? Why is he not saying anything? Like, how much of a deadbeat dad does he have to be? He finally shows up. And a little backstory about Ashley and Ashley's ex-husband Kevin. They both met in 2004 and they got married in 2005. Later in 2010, they had a daughter whose name was Kylie. Now, the reason why Kevin and Ashley got divorced is because Kevin was really into drugs and he would often take marijuana. And not just that, he also suffered mentally and he was also abusive. And Kevin is from from Starkville. So this is what Kevin had to say. Kevin admits that he is bipolar and that he was a former drug addict and now he no longer does drug anymore, and that he continues to suffer from bipolar disorder. He also says that he has never been abusive towards Kylie because he loved her and he never forced Kylie to drink beer. Like I said previously, that apparently Kylie was forced to drink beer, and that he has never smoked on Kylie's face. And here's what the dad thinks. Remember how Kylie's stepfather really tried to defend Kylie? Well, it's the opposite. Kevin thinks that his daughter is wrong, and he said that whatever this girl has done, she deserves to get punished for it. He said that girl knew right from wrong. That girl is not insane. That was a very dumb defense if you ask me. I wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me. That's what Kevin had to say. Kevin also said that I am embarrassed and I can't believe that she did something like that. Yes, Ashley was my ex-wife. However, I always wanted the best for her. What Kylie has done, she has embarrassed me. She has embarrassed the whole family. This is what Kevin had to say. Anyways, I think adult decisions should have adult consequences. Yes, just because she suffers mentally doesn't mean she gets a free pass for it. Because truth is, not everyone in this world is sane and everyone is going through something. She's not the only person that is going through a psychotic break every now and then. I think she deserves to be in jail and I hope she stays there for a very, very long time. Like, people believe that Kylie is mentally ill, so they think that Kylie should be in a mental institution getting the help that she actually needs instead of being in prison. At the end of the day, Kylie's case raises a lot of questions. Should she have been treated like a child that is struggling mentally? Is life in prison the answer, or would getting mental health treatment would have been a better option? What I think we can all agree on is that something needs to change. Whether it's how we handle mental health in young people or how we treat juvenile in the justice system. This case should make us reflect on how we approach both accountability and compassion. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Sharika and this has been A Cracked Case. I'll see you next time.